Hello internet friends, welcome back to Future Fiber. This is a channel where I talk about anything fibercraft related, but most of the times it's knitting. And we're back today with another podcast episode to talk about the elephant in the room. I did cut my hair. My hair was getting too long and I felt like my head was getting too heavy, so I literally just tied a ponytail and chopped most of it off. Hair grows back, right? So it's okay. I was also slightly inspired by Mandy from Knits by Mandy. She also had a haircut that was like pretty short. So I'm joining the bob. Is this a bob or is this too long to be a bob? Is this a lob? A long bob? Train. So anyways. Okay, so I think this is actually going to be a pretty short podcast episode. I don't really have a lot of finished objects, and I have some work in progresses that I started, which are pretty exciting, but they're not at the point of completion, so we'll just get into it. So if we remember the last podcast episode, I talked about the million-year sock, or the 1,000-year sock. They're done. Oh my god! Can you believe it? I have 2 socks. Wow. This is knit with Madeline Tosh sock in color I don't know because I took the label off and deleted it from my house and my memory. But the heel is made from Knitting for Olive cotton merino in the colorway Purple Elephant. So, and I talked about this a lot, but I don't think I actually said like any details about this. So here we are. This is my vanilla sock recipe. Is I knit for myself. I usually do 64 stitches and then the needle size I use. So I also had a revelation about the needle size recently where I have 2 needles that I mainly use for sock knitting. And I thought they were the same size, but they're clearly not the same size. So that was a rude wake-up call. So it's these. They're Chiagu fixed circulars, size 0s, which are 2 millimeter. And the other ones I have are also Chiagus, and I think they're 1.75. So I've been knitting socks with those, and I always thought they were like the same size, but I guess, yeah. I mean, that explains the tension differences in some of the socks that I've knitted in the past, but I don't know why I didn't put 2 and 2 together. Like, they're clearly, like, if you look at them, they're visibly different sizes. I mean, I guess at this point it doesn't really matter, but yeah, I do 64 stitches cast on. Well, no, because I usually knit toe up, so it ends up being 64 stitches at the end. But I start with 16 stitches at the toe, Judy's Magic Cast On, and then I increase at a rate of every row until I get to, I believe, 24 stitches, and then, well, 24 times 2. Let me try that again. So I increase at a rate of every round 4 stitches until I get to 48 stitches on my needles, and then after that it's every other round until I get to 64 on both of the needles. I don't know why that took I don't know why that was so hard to say. Like, anyways, so, but that increased rate kind of makes this rounded toe shape, and I like that a lot. But I do feel like I need to try some different toe shapings in the future because this, while nice, I think it's better than the wedge toe, the regular wedge toe shape where it's like every other row until you get to the tip. I feel like given the shape of my foot, I need to consider maybe doing the, I don't actually know what the word for that is, but you know where like for the toes, like you, the increase is less on this side, I guess, so that the toes it accommodates for the toes better. And that's because I have foot shape. Is this TMI? I don't know, but we're just gonna talk about it. My foot shape is kind of like, my toe is like the biggest, and then the rest of my toes like slope down like this way. So whenever I wear socks, it has a tendency to twist. The top of the foot has a tendency to twist inwards toward the inside of my foot. And it kind of sorts itself out after I wear it, but you know, like it kind of bugs me, so I might try a different sock technique. Anything else I wanted to talk about? Okay, so in the last podcast, I think I said for the heel, I wanted to try a new heel called a fleegle heel. I didn't do that because I didn't read the pattern for the recipe for the fleegle heel until I got to the time that I had to, the part in the sock where I have to put in the heel. And for the fleegle heel, I'll talk about it a little bit afterwards, but you have to start doing the increases like at earlier than when you do the heel turn typically. So I basically didn't want to rip back. So I made the two socks just have the regular short row heels, German short row heels. And then typically I don't have a huge problem with fit for these short row heels because I feel like my instep isn't very high and my foot is pretty, like, not flat, like, because my arches are pretty high, but then they're like very thin, I guess. Words are escaping me today, but you get it. So I typically don't have a lot of problems, so it's fine. And then I knitted up and then did really long ribbing here for the cuff, and that wasn't intentional. I don't know if you remember, but originally on this sock I had like a contrast stripe going across the top of the ribbing for this first sock, and then I was knitting the second sock, and then I realized that I had more yarn to finish off both of these socks without switching to the contrast color. So I ripped back the first sock that I did and then just replaced it with the ribbing. And then so I was working on both of these socks at one time from like each end of the ball of the yarn, so from the center and from the outside. And therefore I have none of this yarn left, which is great, because I'm sick of having these tiny little scraps everywhere in my house. And I'm pretty pleased with them. They weren't a stash busting project, so I'm not entirely like jazzed about how they look, but they're kind of more for function than form, so I think that's completely fine. For the bind off, for toe up sock bind off, I usually do Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off. Yeah. So how I do that is Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off basically is yarn overs every stitch that you bind off. And how I do it is I alternate the yarn over. So I would decide if I wanted to yarn over for the knit or the purl, if that makes sense. So instead of yarning over for every new stitch that I have to bind off, I reduce the number of yarn overs by half. So I feel like that usually fixes the problem of the flared look that Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off can have sometimes, and it's worked pretty well. And I don't need my socks, the top of my socks, to be super stretchy because I don't really have thick ankles. So they slide over my feet and legs pretty fine, like no matter, as long as it's not just like a straight, regular casting off kind of bind off, they seem to do okay. So I haven't really had the problems that a lot of people seem to have with like the toe up socks. So I would just keep that in mind if you're trying to attempt a toe up sock and you've never done that before. So okay, and then, oh my god, this is 15 minutes in already. I need to edit some of this out. Okay, so this next finished object that I have is another sock. Since I finished off my sock that I was working on during my transit times, I had to cast on another one so that I could, you know, go places without having a knitting thing that I could shove in a bag. So I cast on this. This is another toe-up sock. And this is using Schoppel Wolle Zauerball Crazy in color Garden Party. And then the top of this, I ran out of yarn. So I tried to do kind of like a gradual-ish switch over of the yarns, but it ended up just kind of looking like stripes, but I'm just like, whatever. But the top yarn that I used is Cascade 220 fingering in Sage. Oh, I can't believe I remember that. That's crazy. So the basic construction of the sock is the same as the previous sock that I showed, except so the toe is exactly the same. This is also a toe-up sock. Toe's the same, but the top of the foot is 2x2 rib all the way up. And then the heel, now this is interesting. This is the fleegle heel. So how that works is, also shout out to whoever suggested that I do a fleegle heel. This was an interesting learning experience for sure, and I think I like it. But you see from here, I started increasing every other round until I had on the heel needle, I have double the amount, I think, of stitches that I started out with, and then you do the heel turn by doing slipped stitches. So if you know how to do like the German short row heel turn, I guess when you turn, when you finish doing like the gusset and then you're doing the heel turn, instead of like knitting the German, how do I explain it? When you've knit the German short row at the end of that particular row, and you have to do the turn to get to the other side, instead of creating another German short row stitch, you would slip the stitch and then pull and then just continue. So that's the same kind of technique that you use for here. Did I explain that correctly? I don't know. Just go to the blog and read through it. They explain so much better than I ever can. So yeah, once I've done that, I just, you know, 2x2 all the way up. And then up here, I don't know if you can tell, but this is like a little bit of 1x1, like 3 rows of it. And then I cast off using the same method that I talked about with the Jenny surprisingly stretchy cast off. And you can see it's still pretty stretchy. Like that's got some give. But it's not, it doesn't look like it's super flared out, which is what I like about that which is what I like about that bind off method. Anything else I want to talk about? The fleegle heel, I'm not entirely convinced on how this looks. Like, I don't think this looks that great. I don't know. I think my brain is just so used to having this, you know, for like commercial socks, like the short row heel is what they do. So I'm just very used to this kind of shape on a heel. I think that's also like the same reason why I don't like the heel flap either. Like even on top of the fact that you have to pick up the stitches, it also doesn't look very traditional sock to me. I think that's part of the reason why I don't like it. But this looks really unconventional to me, but it fits really well. So I definitely feel like this is so much nicer in terms of fit than the other sock that I made. And I think the ribbing helps too, but like this heel is just more satisfying to have, to wear. So I think this could be a good option for gift knit socks, especially if I wanted to knit socks for like my boyfriend or something. He has really high arches and really long, tall instep. So I feel like for somebody like him, this heel would be like perfect. There's no way that he could fit the standard like German short row heel, so I think this would be a great option for people like that. But yeah, but this is the reason why I'm putting this in kind of like finished object territory right now is because I can't find, so I have another, this was like 25 grams of socks, I think, and then I have another 25 grams of this color of yarn somewhere in my house, but I can't find it. So I can't cast on the second sock. So I can't finish this until I find it. So I need to like clean my house and see where it pops up. But I guess this is just going to be a thing. Like every other podcast, I'm just going to lose all of my things and not be able to finish and have a... Anyways, okay. All right, let's get into work in progress. Let's talk about the sock. It's going to be a very socky episode. So this is my transit sock for this month, I guess. This is the Ruffle socks by Petiteknit. This is a top-down sock, and I'm knitting this with Cascade 220 in, I don't know what the color is, the white one. And this is being knit on Chagu fixed circulars in 2mm. I feel like that's like the best for me because I think my tension is a little bit loose, especially with metal needles. I know a lot of people knit their socks on 2.25, but 2 or 1.75 is like the best for me, apparently. And I knit all of them in magic loop. I don't have DPNs. I don't for socks. And I just think magic loop makes sense, and you don't need any markers, and you can know exactly where you are since it's divided for heel and instep. So what do I want to say about this? Okay, I think I hate this pattern. I think it's very cute, but this is so fiddly. You start, can I share this information? I mean, probably it's not really, you can probably guess at what the construction is from just looking at it, but this is top down, and you start the pattern with the frills. And how the frills are created is like you cast on a lot of stitches and then you decrease. I didn't like that. I think that's another reason why I don't like knitting cuff down socks, because it's like you have to cast on more stitches than if you do toe up. I think I'd rather increase than decrease is what I'm saying. So it was so fiddly. It's so many stitches that you have to work to kind of like knit together. I don't think if it was even knit together, I think it was knit together through the back loop, which was like horrible because this is, you know, fingering weight yarn, and this yarn doesn't have any nylon in it, so it doesn't stretch. So that's my mistake, but yeah, it just wasn't very nice. And then to do the cuff part, you have to sew down basically the cuff. That was also very fiddly. I don't think I did it correctly. So I'm wondering if this pattern could be made toe up. So I'm going to knit this pattern exactly like how the pattern suggests. I am knitting I think this is the third size in the pattern, which is like the EU 3940 size. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to knit this top down and then finish it. And then I'm going to see if I can knit the same sock, follow the pattern pretty much exactly, but do a toe up. So I would replace all the decreases to increases. And this is using German short row heel, so I feel like there wouldn't be any problem for me to attempt to do it toe up. We'll see. This might come bite me in the butt. But I think I'd rather try that and have to frog the entire sock than for me to do the frills again top down. I don't know how people do it. Like, it's just not, it wasn't fun. It was not. But maybe that's just me. All right, well, that's work in progress number 1. This is maybe a very socky episode. Second work in progress. My Elizabeth blouse inspired Maude Tee from Petiteknit, knit with, where'd the yarn go? With a Colourmart like fluffy yarn, and then Hedgehog fibers sock yarn in Renaissance. We have a sleeve. Everybody clap. Oh my Jesus. This took a little bit longer than I thought. I don't know, I feel like typically sleeves go pretty fast, but I think it's just this fluffy yarn. It doesn't like really allow for speed. So I can't speed through it like I would with a smooth yarn. So I think I'm going to divorce myself from using fluffy yarns as much as I can this year. The sleeve, since the Maude Tee originally is a short sleeve pattern, obviously I didn't follow that. What I did was every 12 stitches, or no, every 12 rows, I did a decrease. I decreased by 2 stitches. So, you know how the sleeve decreases work. You knit one. What do? You do knit one, knit together, knit to the other one, over 3 stitches, you knit together, move back, and there's the decrease. Yeah, so I did that down the sleeve. I don't even know how many exactly I did. Must have been like 1, 2, 3, 4, 4-ish. And then I did 1 by 1 rib, bound off and sewn bind off, Italian bind off, whatever it is. I think it looks very good. Very, very good. So, and then I started on the second sleeve here. And I've done just enough so that I've worked 1 round of decreases on this sleeve so far. So I'm chugging along. It's looking pretty okay. Like, I think also that I will have enough yarn for this to be a comfortable length in the body for me, so that's very good. I think at this point I've used about half of the 100-gram skein of the sock yarn for 1 sleeve, so I should have enough for the other sleeve, and then I will use this whole thing to knit the body. So I'm very excited. It's going to be, by the time this is done, it's going to be like summer or spring. And so that's a little bit sad, but yeah, I mean, I don't need to wear it immediately, right? So progress on the second Maude Tee hasn't been as fast. I don't even know if I worked on it at all since I showed it to you in the last podcast. I think I did a little bit. I did a couple rows here on the sleeve. I'm still on the first sleeve. I don't know. It's getting there, right? Yeah. I mean, can you see that? I think I might have enough where I don't need to order a new ball, maybe. If I just undo the bottom hem of this sweater. I do like the length that it is right now, but this is double knitted. Well, it's knit long and then folded up, so I got some extra, you know, I have some extra room for me to eat into. I don't know how I feel. I think I definitely made the right choice by lengthening the sleeves. I just really hope I don't need to buy another ball of yarn. The color of this sock yarn is Schoppel Wolle Boots, and it's in the color A899, which it's just. I think I want to finish the sleeve on the other Maude Tee that I'm working on, and then I'm going to get really cracking into that one. So hopefully I'll have some more progress the next time I show this. And then, is this the last work in progress now? Oh my god, I had one in front of me and I just like did not even. Okay, so this is my next work in progress that I cast on. Cast on? Is that what you used for, is that the term that you use for crochet projects too? But I have a crochet thing here. It's a bag. It's going to be a bag. So this Scrappy crochet bag, tote bag project was inspired by Dima Patterns on Instagram, and the designer had made this super scrappy tote bag that was just like, it looks like single crochet, but I don't know anything about crocheting, so this is half double crochet. And I'm not going to take all this yarn out because this is what I'm using to, all the yarn in here is what I'm using to like make this bag, so I just keep it inside of the project, which has been pretty handy. I just, you know, crocheted until it was about approximately the size that I wanted, and then, you know, there are a couple of rows of like approximately what I wanted. So this has like it's just a very mindless project, and it's good to do when I am watching TV. Although I feel like crocheting for me takes a little bit more brain effort than knitting. Like something stockinette in the round I can do really mindlessly, but crochet I feel like I need to pay a little bit more attention or it goes really haywire. And I'm switching the yarn color pretty, like, there's no rhyme or reason. I do a couple stitches, couple half double crochets until I feel like switching the yarn. I'm typically holding like 3 or 2 yarns at the same time, and these are all different weights, but I'm knitting or crocheting them really on a smaller gauge, I guess. I'm crocheting them with 4mm hook, so they're very like tight. So it doesn't matter. I feel like the weight of the yarn doesn't really matter as much. But I really like it. I think it looks cute, and I think having some of these like bright pops, like there's a lime green in here and then like a really bright blue. Let's see if I can find the section that I really like on this side. Oh yeah, like this green color I think looks really good with the pink too, like that. And then the little flecks of red, that's from like a tweed yarn that I had. And this is, I feel like, a really good way to use up all of these like little balls that I had. So I'm excited to finish this and then maybe make a couple more, just to have for like, I could put my yarn in them. It's like yarn cannibalizing itself. But anyways, I feel like it's a good way to really scrap, stash, bust. So I like it. And the thing that the designer Dima Patterns that she did to make it all kind of feel a little bit more cohesive, I feel like, is to do the top of the bag and the handle using one color yarn. So I'm going to have to see what yarn I have enough of to do that. So excited to have this, and I think it'll look really cute in the summer, you know, or not in the summer, anytime. I don't know. Next work in progress is my, what is this guy? Ingrid sweater from Petiteknit. So last time I showed this, I had the back panel, and I've since then done the front two like shoulder sections here and here, and then started doing the front yoke pattern. So I finished this mock cable section, and then now I have to do eyelet and then rib, and then I can join in the armpit. And then I've also done this neck. Pretty good progress, in my opinion. And this is where the yarn choice comes and bites me in the butt. I did all of this basically exactly to pattern for extra small, but then obviously, as I mentioned, the yarn that I used is Jill Draper Make Stuff Empire, which is Aran weight. So the recommended needle size is 5.5. I'm knitting this on a 5. And so the yarn is thicker, and therefore the neck hole or the neck part is has more structure and is also wider than the pattern suggested. So that's why it looks a little like a cast. It like, when I wear it, it kind of wait, can I put this on? Okay. Yeah, see? Like when I wear it, it kind of sticks up like that. So I'm debating what to do about this. I think I'm going to wait until I've finished doing the entire like body section maybe, until I decide what to do with the neck, if I want to like rip it back and like just pick up less stitches, or maybe I'll do like decreases around this eyelet section here, or I might sew the top section down like this and then just have it be like a you know, regular rib section like that. That looks pretty good. That might be what's happening. But I think I just want to give it some time, because I know that this sweater is going to be really heavy based on, you know, what I've knitted so far. I feel like it's just going to be a really, like, a pretty heavy sweater. So I feel like it's going to like bring it down like this, you know? And once it stretches, I feel like the neck will have enough space, like, you know, like it'll come down like that, and maybe it won't look as dumb. And I also need to like block the whole thing and all of that, so we'll see what happens. Yeah. And I know in the last podcast I had some like reservations about the length or the size of this guy. So this is an extra small, but obviously it's not an extra small because the gauge is totally off, and I think I like it. Now that I've gotten to this point, I'm like, I think I'm going to keep it. I'm gonna just keep knitting. I hope I have enough yarn to finish, because I don't know where I can get more of this. And so I'm really hoping that I have enough yarn, but I would love to keep it this size if possible. And somebody in the comment mentioned that Inga from Knitting Traditions had made the Guernsey Genzer in like a really large size, and that it looked cute. So I went and looked at it, and it looked really cute. So I'm going to take that as inspiration and just keep knitting and see what happens. So I do think I'm still on, like, I'm still debating on some modifications that I might make to this. So if we look at this bottom section here, so I've done one section of the mock cable, and then we have this rib section here, and then how it progresses after this is that you have another moss stitch section, and then you have the mock cable, but then it's like twice, repeated twice, and then you have ribbing bottom for the bottom. And I feel like if I do that, the sweater might be too long. So and then like the proportions I feel like might look really stupid. So what I'm thinking I might do is here I might rip back some of the rib section so that it matches the length of this 1x1, wait, what is this? This mock cable stitch pattern. So that I would rip it back to here and then do the eyelet and then do the moss stitch to match this section, the length of this section. And then once I get to the second cable, mock cable section, instead of doing this twice, like so that it's double as long, I guess, I might do it once. So trying to adjust the proportions of the sweater that way, so that I feel like, I know a lot of people just at the end of the sweater, they just knit less of the 2x2 rib and then just switch over to the 1x1, or then I feel like it kind of like ruins the proportions of the sweater. So I'm trying to see like what my best course of action is as I knit this. I don't know. I feel like, you know, no matter what I do, it's not really going to, it's never not gonna fit because it already fits. Like it's like, if you look at the arm side length, it's so long. Yeah, like here, Like that's like how long the arm side is. And yeah, if you compare it like that, that's already like super, super wide. So there's like basically nothing that I could do where this is not going to get on my body. So I feel pretty emboldened and like making all these changes. So stay tuned to see what I do. Okay, now we're heading into acquisitions. This month I also have a real acquisition. And then I have a fake acquisition from my stash. And this is because it was my anniversary with my boyfriend. We're on year 9. We exchanged some little gifts. But so I asked for yarn for my gift because what else will I do? I'm not allowed to buy yarn for myself, but I won't stop anybody else buying yarn for me. So, you know, and what I asked for was, let me show the yarn that is from my stash first. So that is this little cute ball. This is, I believe it's Coorie from Purl Soho. This is 100% mohair. But it's different from like, you know, silk mohair where it's like has a silk core and it has the blown mohair bits kind of like wrapped around it. This is just plied, straight up plied mohair. So this was very expensive, but they discontinued this. So I can't get any more of this. But then like during that time, I bought like 7 or 9 skeins of it. So I have a lot of this. And they were having like, this is originally like, I don't even know, 30 something dollars. This is 25, no, this is 50 grams. But it was a lot of money. And then they discounted it to like $7 a skein. So I grabbed a lot of it when they were having that sale. The colorway is, oh yeah, the color of this is called Silver Lilac. And this, I looked at the Ravelry page for this yarn and I knit up a little tiny sample of it. Oh, I don't know where it went. Oh, it's up there. But anyways, knitting this alone doesn't really yield like the nicest fiber because it has really good drape. Because of the mohair fibers, it doesn't really sit very neatly. Like even after blocking, the stitches don't really have a lot of good definition and they don't like, they're a little bit uneven. So I wanted to hold it with something. So I asked for this yarn, this cone from Holst Garn. This is Holst Garn Supersoft in the colorway Princess. And I feel like it's a really good match, right? This is more of a purpley blue lilac, and then this is like a more, this is feels a little bit slightly more pinky. So I feel like they're gonna be a really good match, like something. And I have so much purple in my wardrobe. I don't even know how this happened, but at this point I could probably dress myself head to toe in purple. I don't even like purple that much. But so this is like the end of purple. Like I can't get any more purple yarns. This is it. Yeah, so I'm excited. I haven't knit this up yet because I only got it a couple days ago and I have so many other projects to finish at this point that I just, yeah. But I'm really excited to knit with this. I love cones. Like I just love how they look and I love that I don't have to connect yarns because that's like one of my least favorite parts of knitting. And weaving in ends also sucks. So super excited to knit with this. I know that you have to kind of like pre-wash it, or like when you knit with this, like you have to wash it in the washing machine and it comes out like super soft or softer. But I am going to be knitting it with this, so I'm not putting it in the washing machine, but I don't feel like it's that scratchy. So I feel like it'll be okay. And what I wanted to make with this combo is I want some sort of a cable cardigan or cable sweater. And I've been thinking of, I might either make a Moby sweater or the Maude sweater from Petiteknit, or the sweater number 15, I believe, the all over cable one from My Favorite Things Knitwear. Although I don't know, I feel like that particular pattern, it's so simple, and I haven't really particularly enjoyed knitting any of the My Favorite Things knitwear patterns. Like, I feel like they always yield a really good result, but I never enjoy the actual process of me like knitting any of it. So I don't know, this is all kind of up in the air, but I do want to make this is going to be a cable sweater. So I am excited to cast on whatever the hell that is going to be, but you know, stay tuned. I just like put this yarn somewhere and just look at it, because it's very satisfying to have this nice cone. Oh, you can't see it. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and let me know what you guys are working on, because I'm always curious about what other people are knitting. And I will see you guys next time. Next week I have a pretty exciting video that's coming up, or exciting to me at least, and it's actually one of my work in progresses, but I haven't talked about it here, but because I want to make a whole separate video about it. So let's see what happens. Cool. See you guys later. Goodbye.